All right, here we are for chapter 11 of Tempted. And first off, I think I need to apologize. There's probably quite a few birds. I think they might be louder in the background for you than they are for me. So I apologize. I hope that doesn't disrupt your enjoyment at all. I actually kind of like listening to them, but not everybody does. But I have an announcement. If you are following along in real time, first of all, a little backstory. My husband asked me the other day, right after Mr. Darcy and the Governess came out, and I was in the push to finish Mr. Darcy's Fair Trade, which is for the newsletter subscribers. He said, when are you going to stop having such tight deadlines? I said, oh, no, I'm done for a while. Everything else is easy. I can make all that, no problem. I'm a liar, because I rearranged my entire writing schedule and shoehorned in something that I probably is crazy, but you're the first to hear about it. There's going to be a Christmas novella. Let's see, wait a second. How to Get Caught Under the Mistletoe, Ladies' Guide. Writing a snark between Darcy and Elizabeth is one of my favorite things to do, and this is going to be a fun, light little Christmas novella. I hope to have it out before November. My husband might not see me for a while, though, which is the trade-off. So that's for you guys. I'm super excited about it. You're the first to hear about it. I'll be announcing it sometime soon, I think, so we'll see. Anyway, chapter 11 of Tempted, and we are beginning today in Wyoming of April 1900. Jane, dear, you look positively lovely. You will be the most popular girl in town tonight. Elizabeth tucked the last curl up into her sister's hair, then bent down beside her to smile into the mirror. Perhaps the Colonel will ask you to dance. Jane puckered her lips and tilted her head. I do not think I would be the one to interest him, Lizzie. Whenever I see him, he's busy talking to you. Do you like him? Well, naturally. He's the most gentlemanly man in town and can speak on all manner of interesting topics. Do not make of it more than what it can be. He should be on his way again soon enough, like all the other officers. And have you never heard of an army officer marrying and then taking his wife back to England? Elizabeth made a face and turned away. Do not tease me, Jane. Besides, why would I wish to leave? I have all of you here, and what is dearer to me than any dashing officer in a khaki uniform? Lizzie, Jane! Kitty arrived breathlessly at the door, her hair a hopeless tangle and tears welling in her eyes. Lydia has taken all my hairpins, and Mamma says I must let her have them. What am I to do? Look at me! Taken your hairpins, Jane wondered. Whatever for? Uncle said she was not to wear her hair up until next year. But he is not home yet, and she has gone and done it anyway. Mamma says she might as well start dressing like a lady, and now I have no pins left because she used the very last one. Have you any I might use? Elizabeth rolled her eyes at Jane in the mirror and sighed. Very well, Kitty, come sit down. Let us see what we can make of it. The Bennets and Gardners arrived together in Mr. Gardner's wagon, driven by Billy. He did remember to set the brake and secure the team this time, although Elizabeth noted with a private smile that her uncle did not lead her aunts away from the wagon until Billy had done so. She and Jane walked together, trailing behind their younger sisters. The dancing had not yet begun, but nearly everyone was already gathered. A pig was turning on the spit, and the beer was flowing from the kegs, where a good number of the men had gathered. Bryson stood among them, but he had not noticed her yet. Elizabeth suppressed a shiver. Here, with the noise of the dancers and the inevitable darkness of the evening, she would do well not to allow him too close to her. Her qualms were relieved a moment later because Colonel Fitzwilliam was weaving towards her. He had not ridden with them, after all, as Mr. Gardner's wagon had been full enough, but he had been diligent in watching for them. He wore that genial, friendly expression, which was his usual way, and he bowed before them both with a playful flourish. The fair Mrs. Bennet, good evening. I trust you have both come ready to dance. May I have the pleasure of introducing you to Corporal Denny? Elizabeth and Jane smiled at the fresh-faced young corporal, who stammered out a greeting and then gazed raptly at Jane. The sisters exchanged glances of amusement, then the corporal bashfully asked Jane if she would like something to drink, and could he fetch it for her, or better yet, escort her. Jane sweetly agreed to the latter. Elizabeth was thereby left alone with the colonel. He was following the corporal and Jane with his eyes, then looked back at her with a wink. Useful fellow, Denny. Ah, so you planned that introduction. I am an army man, Miss Elizabeth. I plan everything. Have no fear, for the corporal has been instructed to watch over your sister well this evening. She dipped her head in gratitude. Then for that, I thank you. Jane's company is often sought by men, but rarely has she found a single champion. And have you posted guards on my other sisters as well? I had, but it seems your younger sisters met with others before my men could carry out their duties. And Miss Mary took one look at Corporal Carter and walked away. Perhaps he's not the handsomest of my men, but he is a decent enough fellow. Mary will assume the worst intentions. I'm afraid that is her way. So, what of myself, Colonel? Which of your chivalrous gents have you assigned to my protection? Miss Elizabeth, I am wounded. He put out his arm, and just then the music began. Shall we? The Colonel was an excellent dancer. Though he did not at first appear to know the steps, for there were no formal patterns, he adapted quickly to the call and appeared to be as much at ease on the dance square as he seemed to be on a horse. Sadly, Elizabeth could not spend the entire evening enjoying his company. Others were now stepping in, and in the course of a single tune, a lady might turn round the square with 3 or 4 partners. It was no surprise, then, that she found herself opposite Jake Bryson rather more frequently than she would have wished. On one such occasion, his hands had slipped a little too low about her waist, and his musty breath was a little too close to her ear. Elizabeth could not help a glance about, searching for any man who might request her company for a turn, but her much-favored Colonel appeared to be in an earnest conversation with her cousin Billy. What the latter might be able to say to interest the English Colonel she could not imagine, but for once she wished her cousin was a little less interesting. A moment later, however, she was surprised when Billy, reclusive and clumsy Billy, approached from her left. My turn, he mumbled to Jake Bryson. Bryson turned incredulously on the quaking Billy. Elizabeth pulled her hands free and made a laughing curtsy towards her cousin and an apologetic tip of her shoulders to Jake. Still, he did not move, but glowered down at Billy. Oh, come, Mr. Bryson, Elizabeth soothed. Let us dance by rule and follow the usual customs. I am certain to enjoy your company again later. His lip curled again at Billy, but then he abruptly turned away. Elizabeth was certain she heard a muttered curse, but she only breathed a sigh of relief to be free of him for a moment. Enjoy his company? What are you doing encouraging him, Lizzie? Billy demanded. If I hadn't thought you wanted to be rid of him, I never would have antagonized him by stepping in. I was only trying to keep you from earning a fat lip for your trouble. I must thank you, by the way. Or is it the Colonel I have to thank? You don't think this was my idea, do you? You know how much I enjoy dancing. My toes have certainly borne witness to your grace, she returned with a wry chuckle. 3 counts to the beat, not 4, Billy. I would like to be able to walk tomorrow. Well, if this is how you show gratitude. I beg your pardon, sir. They both turned to find the Colonel bowing slightly, then he held his hand towards Elizabeth. May I? And thus passed most of the evening. Each time Bryson would command Elizabeth's company, a different man would permit him only a moment before cutting back in. Often it was the Colonel himself, but he had obviously enlisted the efforts of all his men, as well as a few others from town. At one point, the Colonel was leading her away from the dance for some refreshment. Is it wise, sir, to instigate an open rivalry with the man you are obliged to work with? The Colonel glanced over his shoulder to where Jake stood, a beer in his hand, and his head turned so as not to make it obvious that he was watching them. Do not worry on my account, Miss Bennet. Perhaps I am worried on my own. Much as I appreciate your efforts at monopolizing my company this evening, you only frustrate a man who is known for a short temper. You are not likely to outstay Jake Bryson, who was born and will remain in the area. He stopped and looked at her carefully. You do not think he would trouble you in retaliation after my assignment is up? I think he has had a child who has had his toy taken away and is liable to behave unpredictably. A toy, he scoffed. I should hope you think of yourself as more than some filthy cowherd's plaything, Miss Elizabeth. I only offer my opinion of his feelings and actions, not my own. You may be assured that I do not intend to put myself in his way, but neither will it profit me to humiliate him for my own amusement. Pray allow me to curry his displeasure. I can handle Bryson. I only sought to offer you and your sister some protection from the likes of him. She laughed. Whatever did we do before you and your men came to town? He took a glass for each of them and passed one to her. What did you do? He asked seriously. And why is it that your father is not here to watch over his many daughters? She took a careful sip of her drink, not looking him in the eye. Miss Elizabeth, have I offended? She shook her head. No, I was trying to decide how to explain it. Papa is considered by many in town to be bad luck. Bad luck? Is that all? It is rather serious, actually. We used to have a ranch, you see, Longbourn, known all around for the finest stock. He nodded. I heard something of that. Lost them all to a strange disease, did you not? Papa is quite knowledgeable. He was never formally trained, but I think he might have made a fair doctor if he had not inherited the ranch. It was not a large spread, certainly not so large as some, but we had the best water in the valley. That is wealth of a different sort, lifeblood for any ranch. We also had an exceptionally fine bull, and our purebred calves were much sought after. But one day, some of our calves were feverish. The next day, a few more came down with it. It turns out that ours were only the first. For nearly 10 miles around, different ranches began losing their calves. Papa was often called out to look after the neighbors' calves and to give his opinion, but there was nothing he could do. I'm not so certain that he did not make it worse for everyone else, for after his visits, it seemed whatever disease it was spread even more quickly. It's not his fault, of course, but so many people lost all their calves that summer that Papa's name became associated with the disease. He was convinced someone was poisoning the animals, but no one believed him. He could not go to town, but someone would try to spit or curse at him for all their losses. And what of your own herds? She shrugged. I still do not know why, but we lost more than the young ones. Most of our mothers either lost the young they were carrying or died themselves of the same ailment. But the day we lost our bull, that was when Papa decided he was finished. He sold off what was left the following day, but he got a pittance for it. Everyone was convinced that Papa and our land were the source of it, and no one wanted to take it on. Who did buy it? She nodded towards the dancing crowd. Jake Bryson's father. He narrowed his eyes. Indeed. He'd made some money already selling off the Mustangs to the wealthy English investors, who then contracted with the army. I suppose he thought he could bear the risk. And your father works for him, then? Papa was lucky to find work at all at the time. We thought to go elsewhere, but there was nowhere to go. My uncle was kind enough to take the rest of us in, and we repay him by helping at the store, or with my aunt's little ones. The colonel took a long draw from his glass and swallowed it thoughtfully. I'm sorry to hear of your family's distress, Miss Elizabeth. I had not realized there was some connection to Bryson. I hope I've not caused you lasting embarrassment. As you say, I am only here for as long as the army pleases to leave me here. Oh, do not concern yourself, Colonel. I'm certain it will all be forgotten. You have given me a great deal of amusement with your valiant efforts, and for that I shall thank you. What of you? You must have family back in England. I do. My father is an earl, which I am certain you have heard. I am afraid that title and my proximity thereto have been misunderstood in town. I have a healthy older brother with a healthy son, so it is fortunate for me that I do not mind my lot as a soldier. I am reasonably fond of my brother. Reasonably? You make it sound as if it is your duty to like him. Is it not? But no, quite honestly, Reginald is a decent enough chap. I believe you would like his wife. She brought a breath of fresh air, as well as a substantial dowry to the estate. It was a business arrangement, as many marriages in my family are, but it's turned out well enough. Elizabeth swirled her drink and shook her head in mild astonishment. It seems so far removed from everything I've ever heard, and yet so little is different. Here, so many marry for survival. A woman with nowhere to go, a man with a house and 5 hungry children to manage, and they make the best of it. She thinned her lips and sighed. You disapprove of people making what prudent choices are available to them. Oh, no, I did not mean to say that. I only think there should be other considerations. Matters of the heart are worth some thought, are they not? The colonel chuckled and took a second glass from a passing waiter. I beg your pardon, Miss Elizabeth, but this conversation is beginning to remind me of some of the long talks I've had with my cousin. He's a brooder, a thinker, like you, I suppose, although you have the good grace to smile and tease when you speak with someone. Your cousin disapproves of marriage for practical means. Darcy? I would not say that he altogether disapproves. He's engaged himself, and it is a business affair if I ever saw one. 2 years he's been informally pledged to marry Miss Anne de Bourgh, but his father proposed it some 10 years before that. Still, neither appear to be in any hurry to bring the affair to the point. Whenever he can be induced to speak of it, he makes some vague excuse that the lady's enjoying her tour of the continent or wishes to gain some accomplishment or other before marriage, and that he is in no mind to suspend her pleasure. Privately, Miss Elizabeth, I think they can hardly stand to be in the same county together, let alone the same house. Is the lady truly so horrid, or is your cousin such a brute that a woman would dread marriage to him? Darcy is as noble as a man can be, but perhaps a little dull, according to some. Not me, of course. I can see why a woman might not find him interesting, wealthy though he is. Anne is an old family friend, and the connection spans 2 or 3 generations. No, she's not horrid, but she is rather fond of her own way, and becomes more so the longer she remains a spinster. Now, before you think the men of my family object to strong-minded women, I will tell you that Reginald's wife can easily go toe-to-toe with Anne, and usually comes out the victor. But you see, Anne lacks any humor or gentler sentiments. It is all well and good for a woman to be determined and bold if she can also be gracious in both victory and defeat. Without that virtue, her company becomes wearisome rather quickly. Fitzwilliam Darcy is nothing if not a man of duty, but his long delay in actually marrying Anne makes me wonder if he's not truly an old romantic at heart. He would never confess to me, of course, but I do wonder. Elizabeth laughed and finished her drink. You sound most fond of him, Colonel. I hope, for the sake of your family felicity, that your cousin's marriage turns out better than you seem to fear at present. Indeed, Pemberley is a favorite place of mine to visit, and I would much rather tarry there than anywhere else back at home, provided the mistress is welcoming. He took her empty glass, as well as his own, and set them on a table. Come, Miss Elizabeth, shall we have another dance? She gave him her hand. Gladly, sir. All right. So, one last thing. I have been trying to get London Holiday to upload for you guys for about 3 weeks. It'll run for 72 hours, and I'm not kidding. And then it'll crash at about 60%. I'm not quite sure what it's doing. I am waiting for a new part for my computer. I'm hoping that'll solve some of the problems we're having, largely memory problems. But anyway, it is coming. I'm still working on it. You will have it soon, and hopefully some more after that. But doing my best. So we'll see you soon. Bye.